one of the limitations in power production is your ability to produce torque. So torque is the force that you're applying to the crank, and then the velocity, which is the cadence, go in combination, and the two of them constitute power. And so if you're able to produce torque at a lower cadence or at the same cadence, you're producing a higher power output. But to produce torque, you need to be able to apply the force. And when you are seated and you apply a particularly heavy force, you lose stability. And if you're able to maintain stability by having better strength and also using the smaller muscle groups, you can do that for higher power outputs while still in the saddle. The reason you get out of the saddle is to try to produce a higher power output against what is an increasing resistance from the crank arm to wanting to turn over. And so you use your body weight. So when you get out the saddle, what you're effectively doing is transferring your body mass from one pedal to the other. He's still got some physiological reserve, which he could probably use by getting out of the saddle.
obviously you have a lot more explosivity because you change the center of mass when you go out of your saddle, and you are able actually on a short period of time for a peak to generate a lot more higher forces out of the seat. That's what we know from road sprinters. When they actually go and launch their sprint, they always do it out seated. But when you look more on the sustained effort, actually that out of the seat becomes pretty inefficient after 15-20 seconds. So you cannot hold that long. Because your oxygen costs goes up, because your drag reduction increases, because you just have a higher just a higher frontal area or more frontal area around you. And that's why there was Caleb Ewan was pretty famous for his new sprinting style, going really low while standing, to just actually reduce the drag area. So the drag area is a major factor limiting the sustained speed and power output from a standing sprint. Whereas a seated sprint, which we know actually from track cycling, all the track cyclists do seated sprints. So you need to have a very, very good seated torque ability from your glutes, from your glute muscles, just from all the activation kinetic chain to sustain the sprint. Maybe you cannot create that peak you would do in terms of standing sprint, but you can hold the power output demand a lot longer, like 30 seconds, even up to 1 minute, where, this is almost goes more like into a lead out kind of demand and lead out requirement.
Said, not really. Everyone says I sit a lot, even when delivering a lot of power, but that's the way I always ride. If you want to give an extra punch, you have to stand on the pedals, but yesterday the pace was already very high for the real attack. Then you don't have to stand up to pedal a few more watts and accelerate. It depends on the course, but I like to stay seated.